Hello, everybody, and welcome to our February Parent Leadership Team meeting. If everybody could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'd like to start by going over a few housekeeping items and to see if anybody notices anything kind of cute and new and interesting in any of your emails or visually anywhere. Okay, only one person notices. We have a logo! Yay! We have a little bit of branding for us as a group now, and that branding is thanks to some people who are visiting us who I can't say enough good things about. This is Jennifer and Steve, and they are from Educational Products, Inc., and I've been letting a vendor come every month as long as they're educationally related. It's an educational related product, and it's something that as a county we already sponsor, and I don't like to push anything, but if I believe in them, I let them sit back there. This is one I'm going to actually say something about. Partially, yes, because they did this for us, but they were so easy to work with and so wonderful and so supportive and liked what we did as a group and believed in us that they provided this, which seems like a little thing, but it's a big deal because we also have one for family engagement, which... So we have our own group, but then they have our bigger thing that we do, and you can see the family engagement logo kind of in the middle to the right, and something to kind of brand everything that we're doing for families within Brevard County. So I just want to point out what they do in case you didn't get a chance to stop and talk to them. It's something it's 3 different things. It's great for your school. It's great for parents if you go shopping for school supplies and know how much that costs. It's ridiculous. Not only do they make this simple and easy where you don't have to do it, but the price is amazing. It's also an opportunity while you're saving parents money. It's also an opportunity to raise a little money for your school. So without making the parents pay more, the school is getting a little kickback too. So it's a great thing. Please stop by and see them. Thanks to them, you're all going to be leaving today with a t-shirt. So those are not for sale back there. You're getting one for free. There is a little sheet on your table, and if you'll just fill that out and then afterwards take that to the back, we will give you a t-shirt in the best size possible. I did some estimating, so work with me on that part. What this will do is just give them access to the person that they need to be contacting at the school. Most of the schools already have information. It's been dropped off. You have a packet there, a sample. But this way she can get a hold of you and talk to the right person. Okay? So thank you very much to them for all they've done for us. Moving on, we also have a few things in our packet here. Some will be related to topics. Other things are, you will see your save the date. Big important thing. We have the parent survey coming up. I can't ask you enough for your help in this. Please, 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 as the school staff is talking about the importance of the parent survey, I need our parent leaders who are on the campuses pushing the parent survey. We've worked hard this year to give a little information in the front about things, the way this is used and how the information is changing different things at the school. You'll notice there's a question answer sheet. This is something you can use as needed on your campus. It's also on the website. Really want to get that information out there. To make that information that's given to us really reliable, we need a high percentage of like a high response rate from each school. Otherwise, it's only really reflective of a few people's opinions of things. We need high response rate so it really shows what the whole school needs. This is not only fabulous information for the county, but more importantly, it's fabulous information for individual schools. Things they can really use to make changes that affect their community. So please push this wherever you go, if you're on Facebook or Twitter or any of those things, and you're part of the school. If you're not, you should be part of the Brevard County site. Please repost those and share them and get that information out and have that on your agenda at any parent meeting that you're talking out. There's also something about the Sheriff Wayne Ivey presentation that's going on, so please look at that and have that in your binder to share with parents. You have a kindergarten packet, which will be discussed. You have 2 transition fairs in 2 different locations. This information needs to go back and make sure it gets in the hands of everybody that works with ESE students, please. This is a great program for them. And then you have some information from Educational Products Inc. about their services. Okay, so without further ado, we are going to move on with our agenda. And I have Dr. Karen Schaefer here, who is going to talk about all of our favorite topic. Didn't mean that sarcastic either.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to see you all this morning, and it's always so encouraging when you see parents who are involved and are interested and are here learning and helping us to hopefully spread the good word about all the good things that are happening in Brevard Public Schools, because we do believe that there are lots of good things happening in our schools. And we're going to see right now if I'm able to talk and chew gum at the same time while I look for my little PowerPoint presentation in here. In your packet, you should have, right behind the agenda, I believe, a sheet that is a parent information sheet from the DOE that is a little bit of a description about the new test that we'll be giving on the FSA. The FSA is the Florida Student Assessment Test, and it is one of the tests that we will be administering because, you know, we had lots of talk about the fact that the FCAT was going away because we're getting the new test, but in fact the FCAT has not really gone away. It has been several of the parts of the FCAT have been replaced with the Florida Standards Assessments test. So actually this year we will be giving both tests. We'll be giving the FSA for some portions of what we test, and we'll be giving the FCAT for other portions. So what I wanted to do today was kind of give you an overview of what some of the changes are, to give you some good idea about how you can kind of get an anchor on what parts of the test are the FSA test, what are the FCAT tests, what grade levels we'll be testing. And I found that one of the better ways to kind of simply explain all of these changes is with the chart that you see on the overhead projector right now. This is basically all of the grade levels that we'll be testing, and you can see all the grade levels that we test listed across the top, which assessments we'll be giving, and then you get to go into look at all the color coding to get a determination on which test it is. If a test is bounded in red, that's a Florida Standards Assessment, one of the new assessments. If it's bounded in black, that's a Next Generation Sunshine State Standards. In other words, that's the old assessments that we gave, and in most cases that would be an FCAT assessment or an FCAT 2.0 assessment. We do have some new tests that we're giving or testing at some new grade levels, and you can see that those are highlighted in pink. The other thing that you can see by looking at this chart is whether the test is administered as a paper pencil test, the PP test, or if it is a computer-based test, which is a CBT test. So in one kind of glance, you're able to see quite a bit of information about what the new tests will look like. So the test that we will be administering this year, in place of the reading test this year, we have a new test through the FSA, which is called the ELA. ELA stands for English Language Arts. So they have expanded the reading test to include more than just reading. I don't know if you think about it, if your students are in elementary school, oftentimes they're in a language arts class, or in a secondary, they're in a language arts class, which expands beyond just reading. It's literature, it has speaking, it has listening, and a lot of different skills in it. So the English Language Arts test has expanded beyond just a reading test. And in fact, it has expanded so much that it has actually swallowed up the writing test. For those of you who have been around for a while and you had a student who was in 4th grade, 8th grade, or 10th grade, you know that those were the grade levels in which we administered the old FCAT writing test. Well, that FCAT writing test has gone away, and in its place is a writing test that will not have a standalone grade. Will not have a standalone grade, because now writing actually is a part of the language arts experience. So the score that the student receives on the writing portion of the test will actually get rolled in and become incorporated into the ELA score. So you'll see, you'll get a sub-score for writing that will be included in the results that you see for the English language arts. So the distinction is that we still administer it as a separate test. That will be our first test that we'll be giving, as a matter of fact, in March. But when it's scored, it won't get a separate independent score, but one that gets rolled into the ELA score. The writing test has changed considerably this year on many levels and many fronts. One of which is, in the past, as I said, we gave it to 4th grade, 8th grade, and 10th grade. But this year, because it is a part of the English language arts score, it is now administered at every grade level in which we have a reading score. So that means that students in grades 3 and now for the first time through 11 will be receiving an English language arts score and taking the English language arts test. Therefore, they will also be taking, starting in 4th grade, we're not giving the writing test to the 3rd grade. Theirs will not include the writing. But for the other grade levels, it will also include that writing score. So that's a pretty big change, because we're testing more grade levels. We are testing those grade levels because of incorporating that writing score into the ELA score. Originally, the only grade level that was scheduled to be a paper pencil test for the writing test was 4th grade. However, you'll notice there's a little asterisk on there that's a change from the original, that we will be administering the new writing test as a paper pencil test in grades 4 through 7, and grades 8 through 11 will be taking the computer-based test. Right now, we have 13 schools in the district that have been selected to be writing field test schools. Those are not test scores that will count for students, but they're a way for the state to be able to get some feedback on writing test items. And so we have 13 schools that are participating in that. And actually, it's turned out to be a great advantage, I think, for the schools, because it's given them an opportunity to kind of get a sneak peek at what the administration of this test looks like. Not a sneak peek at the questions, but a sneak peek at how the test is delivered. We have 4 schools in grades 8 through 11 that were selected for the field test, and they are actually giving it as a computer-based test. And I had an opportunity last Friday to go to Rockledge High School, and I wanted to see what this test looked like from start to finish, to see what does it look like from the kid's standpoint, what does it look like from the teacher's standpoint that's administering the test. And I have to tell you, I was really very, very encouraged by what I saw. One of the most exciting things, which sounds very strange, is that after the teacher had read the instructions, the students now it's not just a prompt. Remember the old days when it was just a prompt and they said, tell me about a time when you were happy about a celebration, and then students would write a free-form essay. Well, this is much more of an authentic writing experience, something that they might experience in high school or in college even, where they're looking at text. They're reading passages, and then they have a question that says, based on the things that you've read, now tell me about, and it'll have something, a direction to head them in what they're supposed to write about. And so they read, and then they actually are asked to take passages from or reference those passages. So that's a very different kind of a test. Well, when I went to Rockledge, when the teacher basically said, on your mark, set, go, not quite the words in the script, but essentially said, time to start, there was silence. There was nothing at all that I heard. And that was a good thing, a really good thing, because what that meant was the kids weren't just diving in and starting to type or just taking this not very seriously or thoughtfully. They were reading, and you could see that they were expanding the text, and they were spending time reading and analyzing what it said. And then they had a planning sheet, and the kids were planning, doing some really good outlining of the kinds of things they wanted to say. And then they started doing the typing. And those of us from my generation, which is the flip phone, I still have a flip phone. Yes, that's how bad I am. I was a little concerned about kids being able to use the computer tools, being able to be comfortable on it. But those kids were whipping right through that thing, and they were doing really well. And even now I'm getting reports from the elementary schools where they're doing the practice tests with the kids, where I was so concerned about them being able to use the computer and so concerned about them being able to use the tools that the kids are doing very well. As a matter of fact, they said when they were training the kids, they were doing much better than the teachers on it. So the writing has changed on several fronts, and I am encouraged by what I'm seeing and by what I'm hearing from feedback from our schools about how that writing test is going. The other test that will be one of the new FSA tests is the math test. And you'll notice that we give the math test in grades 3 through 8. It will be a paper pencil test at grades 3 and 4, and computer-based testing in grades 5 through 8. We have been making inroads, and the state has a plan for implementing computer-based testing on a broader scale. And so we had started with the computer-based testing. We had done a good deal of computer-based testing at grades 5 and 6 last year, so this is just a continuation of that. So you can see all of these tests that are outlined in red are the new FSA tests, and you can see that some of them are paper-based, some of them are computer-based. You'll also notice that there's a red line around this group of tests that are our end-of-course tests. And this year, all of our end-of-course tests that are math-based tests, except for one, are going to be from the new FSA test. That includes the Algebra 1 for any students who are going to be taking it for the first time. And keep in mind that these tests are tests that are based on the new Florida standards, and so these EOCs have been changed so that they are based on the Florida standards. You also notice that there's an Algebra 1 down here that's not listed or not circled in red. That's because we do continue to give the old, basically FCAT version of the Algebra 1 end of course exam, because we have students who are doing retakes of that test who took it under the old standards, under a different set of standards. So we will continue to offer the Algebra 1 test in both formats. Students who will be new, taking it for the first time, this year all of the math teachers have been using the new Florida standards to teach the algebra, so they will be assessed on the Florida standards. But students who took it under a teacher when they were teaching it under the Next Generation Sunshine State standards will have an opportunity to do the retake test using the old test. So those are the new tests. The other tests that you see that are outlined in black continue to be our FCAT test. The FCAT science test continues to be a paper pencil test, and we continue just to give it in 2 grade levels now for grades 5 and grades 8. You'll notice also, let me go back to the math for just a moment, that the high school students are no longer tested on the regular general math test. That's because the tests for the high school students now have become course specific. So in other words, if they are taking an algebra course, an algebra 2 course, a geometry course, they will take the end of course assessments rather than a general math test. So that kind of explains a little bit why you don't see those grades being tested elsewhere. As far as the science goes, you'll notice that there isn't a high school science test anymore, and that's because there has been an additional end of course assessment that was put into place about 3 years ago for Biology 1, and that Biology 1 is the assessment that students take for science in the high school, at the high school level. There are other end of course exams that have not been changed over to the new standards. As they're developing standards for other courses in the high school, you'll notice that the Biology 1 is still based on the old standards. The U.S. History is, as is the Civics test that's administered in the middle school. We also have students who are taking math and reading retakes because, and those are in the high school, for students who have not yet passed either the math, or we're kind of on the very tail end of the math part of it, because most of the students have been under the Algebra 1 requirement since 2010-11. So we just have, but we continue to offer it for students who still need to take it, especially students who are in adult ed, etc. So those tests are still administered under the old form. So it looks like more testing, and it does look like a lot. I mean, there's been a lot of questions about, are we just really testing our kids to death? But I want you to notice that when you look at the number of tests that are administered at each grade level, that the changes for each individual student are actually fairly small. So in third grade and fourth grade, for example, you'll notice that they're involved in two tests. They're involved in the ELA and the math test in third and fourth grade, and there's no change. That's what they've been doing since we started FCAT testing way back when. You'll notice that the ones that have the increases, for the most part, grade 5, grade 6, grade 7, grade 9, and grade 11, those increases are because of having the writing test now that they take as a part of the ELA test. So on an individual basis, those students will now be taking a writing test that they hadn't taken in the past. But again, when you look at the number of tests that any individual student will be taking, except for the writing test at some grade levels, students are not taking more tests than they have in the past. And the other is that if you'll notice in the grades 8 through 11, that they may or may not be taking an end of course exam, depending on what courses they take. So for example, in grade 7, we do have some 7th graders who are taking Algebra 1. So if those students are taking Algebra 1 as 7th graders, they will take the Algebra 1 end of course exam, and they will not take the general math test that's administered in 7th grade or 8th grade. So the number of tests that any one individual student is taking really has, except for that in those specific grade levels, hasn't increased all that very much except for the writing test. Grade 11 is where the big change has come, because we were not giving an English language arts or a reading test in 11th grade, but the legislation has changed and demanded that we give an assessment to our 11th grade tests as a way of being able to make good decisions about placement in 12th grade classes for college preparedness. So the 11th graders increased to 2 because they will be taking the ELA test, and because they're taking the ELA test, they're also taking the writing test. So that's why we see an increase of 2 at the 11th grade. So if we look at how this is all going to, whoops, went a little too far, how this is going to transition, there are a couple of questions that we've all had since the very beginning on how all of this is going to happen this year. We are in the process right now of training our test administrators and our folks at the schools about administering this new test and things. As a matter of fact, as soon as I leave here, I'm going to go down and we're doing a day of training with folks again. That'll be our 3rd training we're doing with school folks. And I have to tell you, it's going smoothly, and I'm getting good feedback from our schools about being able to make this happen. But from the student standpoint, we had questions about, if this is a new test, how are we going to do the scoring on the test? Because every year, there has to be a standards setting to figure out what's a level 1, 2, 3, what's a passing score, and those kinds of things. And that's not going to necessarily happen. That I know for sure that will not happen in the same kind of time frame when we've been able to get scores in the past. So what the DOE has told us is that for those grade levels where there are promotion decisions being made, or if there are graduation decisions being made on those tests, what they're going to do is take the scores that we get on these new assessments, these new ELA assessments for reading, and what they'll do is they will do a statistical linking. So what that means simply is this, that they'll take a look, for example, at 3rd grade. What was the distribution of the scores for 3rd grade last year? What percent got level 5, level 4, level 3, level 2, level 1? Then they'll take the scores that we get from the FSA, and we don't have level 1, 2, 3, and 4 yet. And so what they'll do is they will split the scores for this year to match the distribution of the scores from last year. And then from that information, they will then make decisions about whether a student in the 3rd grade has met the promotion requirement. They'll do the same thing with the 10th grade scores and with the Algebra 1 end of course scores as well, where they're matching them percentage-wise to last year so that there will be the same percentage of level 5 students, level 4 students, level 3 students, and they will get what they call an equal percentile linked score, and that is the score that will be used for making those determinations. If it is not a test, if it's not a test that is used for promotion or graduation purposes, then students will get a score, but it's not going to be a score that will be as easily interpreted into a pass or a fail score. They'll get a thing called a T-score, which goes from 20 to 80 points based on looking at a bell curve of scores in the state 50 on the T-score is right in the middle. That means that's where the most students were on the bell curve. So if a student scores above 50, then they know they did better than half of the students. If they did get below 50, that means they did below average on it. Those we will, as far as we know, and I have to tell you, things change on a day-to-day basis with the information we get from the Department of Education. As far as we know, that we will not be making decisions about placements and those kinds of things from those scores, because those are at grade levels where promotion and graduation decisions are not made. The other thing that we'll get this year, they're telling us, is a thing called a percentile ranking. And I don't know if any of you have been around as long as I have, you might remember we used to give a test called the FCAT NRT. And the NRT gave a percentile ranking. And what it means is that if whatever that number is, if your student scores at the 75th percentile on a test, it means that they did better than 75% of the students who took that test. Okay? If you score at the 99th percentile, that means you did pretty darn well, because you did better than 99%. There's no way to get 100 because you're that 100th person, okay? So the top that you can get is a 99 percentile. So we will be getting some kind of scores on this year's test, and they can be interpreted based on where is that score in relation to all of the other scores that have been on that test. But it's not going to be something that you're familiar with a scale score or with an achievement level. And we'll talk about how that's going to happen in just a few minutes. Well, actually, we'll talk about it right now, because the state will set student performance levels over the summer. So what they'll do is they'll push out all of these initial scores with T-scores and percentile rankings and the equal percentile linking scores for the scores for promotion and graduation. And then what they're going to do is do a statistical analysis on all of the scores, and they get several different committees together, and they say, based on what you're seeing, where do you think that the lines need to go for what's a level 5, a level 4, a level 3? And it goes through a very involved process for how they figure out where those achievement levels will be. And sometime over the summer, then, they will make that determination for the test that we'll be taking this spring about where the achievement levels are. Once they've done that, then they will apply those scores, those new cut scores, to last year's scores. And I haven't gotten any word at all about how they might go back and report out that to students who have already received their scores, or if they're going to get another score, or any of those kind of things. But we'll be able to make some kind of a determination, even just looking at a corresponding chart. If you scored at a 45th T-score, what does that correspond to on a scale score? Then they will use those scores that they've applied to last year's data, or to the test that we're going to be giving this spring, then that they will use that for calculating the new school grade, okay? So there are processes in place for how are they going to deal with the fact that this is a new test. Your children will get scores. You will be able to interpret the scores in terms of how well they did, especially in comparison to other folks who took the test. It's just that you won't see the things that you're familiar with in terms of achievement levels, okay? This just kind of goes through and it shows what the timeline is, and it just shows when we'll be doing things. We will be getting won't be getting school grades this year, probably until late in the fall. It's maybe even as late as October or November, because it's going to take them that long to figure out where all of these things are happening. So I just wanted to kind of give you some sense today of what the changes were. We are going to have changes in school grade. The school grade things there is going to be a new school grade formula. They're going to be taking out the penalties. They're going to take out the bonus points. So the whole purpose was for them to be able to get something that is much more straightforward, less confusing. And so sometime in the near future, we'll put some things out about how that new school grade is going to look as well. Okay.
Does anyone have any questions?
Oh.
I knew it. Okay, hold on. I saw one up here first.
I think you answered it. My question was how are they going to notify the parents how our kids did? And you said we're not going to find out anything until the fall, so we don't know until next year.
No, you will get a student score report.
Will they mail that home directly to us?
It'll be just the way you've been getting all your FCAT reports. Every school does it a little differently. Some schools mail them home. Some schools will send out a voicemail message and say, time for you to come and pick up your scores. But you will get that. The two scores that I talked about, which is that T-score score and that percentile ranking score in a report just like you've always gotten. And if you have a third grader or a 10th grader, then you'll get something that has that other linked score on it. But you will get a paper pencil report. The state is required by law to have the scores available to us at the district level by June 8th. Okay?
Okay, so I need to get this right. My kid's score is going to be based on what other kids did on the test, not exactly what they did. Like it's not going to be like, say, they got a 90% because they missed 4 or whatever. It's going to be they got a 90% because they didn't better than 90% of the other kids. So you're not going to know.
Initial rollout, that's pretty much it. But keep in mind that you've never gotten a score even on the FCAT that said that out of 10 questions they got 9, therefore it's a 90%. So the score that you get, even a scale score, is somewhat relative. To grouping those. Initially, they want to make sure that everybody gets a score. And the initial scores that you get, those T scores and those percentile rankings, basically are where they are in relation to everybody else. Later on, they will have those achievement level scores and those level scores that we'll be able to attach to them, but not till they do that in the summer.
Okay.
Hi, thank you so much for the visual chart. I hope it's available online so that we can take a look at it.
I'll show you that in just a moment where that is.
Okay, great. And I have a senior and a sophomore, so my questions would be, would they be holding up report cards for any reason? These scores are going to calculate into their final grade. So how is that going to roll out? Is that going to be any time delay versus previous years?
The only scores that are calculated in as a part of a grade are the end of course exam scores, and in high school, that's absolutely true. And we will be getting scores back on those that will be used to calculate the 30%. And so what we've been able to do is, because the state has a June 8th requirement for reporting scores to us, we will have scores for the EOCs that we'll be able to put in, and that's why typically in the high school you don't get your report cards until a little bit later, because we have to wait to get those before we can calculate that final score. But you'll get those. The EOC scores will be included.
Great, thanks. And then real quick, there's been a lot of misinformation about the FSAs, and we had heard that it's on every subject like PE and art. Is that factual? And when did these teachers actually see these tests to teach to our kids?
Those are not. You're right. There has been a lot of confusion based on my phone ringing on that. I will agree with that. The state has said that every teacher should be administering a test in a subject that they teach to the children that they teach. Okay, and that is a separate and apart. That is a completely different thing than the state assessments than what we've been talking about. FSA assessments are state assessments, as are all those things that are on that chart that I showed you. Those are all state assessments that every child takes, and it doesn't matter what class they're in. They're not necessarily course specific. It doesn't matter what course a high school student is in. If a student is in AP language in 11th grade, they still take the 11th grade ELA. It's not course specific to that, okay? So that's a whole separate thing. State assessments is in a bucket over here all by itself, okay? But so because the legislation has said that we need to have assessments that are given to every child in every subject that the teacher teaches, we are looking at a whole different thing. And think about, we already do that in most cases. For example, if you've got a student in high school, your student in a high school class is required to take a semester exam in every course that they take. That is a course specific to that teacher with those kids. So they're already doing that. So in those cases where we want to be able to get a more unified test, where we're able to do some collaborating, there will be next year some tests that we may see more. We are working on some district-wide tests in some in subjects, so that there can be more consistency. How's that? More consistency. This year, teachers, for the most part, will be giving semester exams, PE teachers give a PE test at the end of the year. You won't see any change. And that is not at all connected to anything that we talked about with state assessment. Not at all, okay? Next year, we will probably see more of those because the legislation is a little more stringent unless they change it. Because honest to goodness, people, when Lee County said that's it, we're done with testing, that started an avalanche. And the folks in Tallahassee, the people on the Education State Senate Committee, are looking closely at what are we doing with testing and how are we doing testing. And I cannot tell you that anything that I tell you today won't change when they vote in May. Okay? So I am telling you everything that I know as of what the legislation says right now.
I'm going to ask everyone if your questions are not about the FSA, hold on to them for when Michelle Irwin's time is later, and we will address those. Since they're two different things, and I know you have questions, we're not ignoring it, just we're going to use that time for that. Okay? So any other questions about the FSA? Or EOC in terms of the ones that she discussed?
She's passing the microphone around. Okay.
In hearing your communication today, it's a lot. How are parents in general being given this information so that they can understand it and know what's going to happen with their children? Because in sitting through PTO and school events and things like that, parents are very, very concerned about what's going on, and they don't seem to know what's going on. So how are they going to receive communication, number one? And school scores, are they going to be compared against FCAT results, or is it going to be a standalone evaluation based on your explanation today?
School scores as in school grades?
Yes, school grades.
Okay. The school grade will be based on these as the new scores as standalone scores, and they're going to come up with a whole new way of grading doing school grade. It will not be compared to how things were in the past, and it will be real interesting to see how that all pans out. Totally.
Okay, we have time for one more question. And then the rest of them we're going to have to address individually afterwards. Please feel free to stay, and we'll take care of them.
Okay. Just remind me how EOC is calculated in the final grade.
Sure. The end of course exam by law says that it has to count as 30% of the final course grade. And so what happens is the student gets a first semester average, and they get a second semester average, just like from their teachers, like they always have. And so each of those semester grades count as 35% of the total. The EOC counts as 30. Did I say that right? Each semester counts as 35%, and then the EOC counts as 30%, and it calculates out as what the final course grade is. Okay. And if I can just, the parent, I didn't get a chance to answer the parent question. Everything that you've seen here today, we have sent out to principals, and we've sent out in leadership team packets there, and we have encouraged them to share at SIP meetings and at parent meetings. One of the challenges is certainly that I don't have a direct conduit to parents, and I have to rely on folks who to do that for me, because I don't, except when I'm graciously invited to meetings like this, I don't get a chance to speak directly to parents. There is a form, and I'm not going to try to pull the things up. We are going to put on the Brevard web. It's already on this testing and accountability web page. And if you go to if you go in on the Brevard web page, there is a testing and accountability website. You have to kind of dig in around a little bit, but we do have a lot of documents. Everything that's public information, we have in there for you to be able to look at all of these things that we've posted. Okay. However, there was we're looking at how can we get. There's a chart, it's just a chart, and I know you cannot see this, but it is a schedule of when the Brevard testing windows are, what the length of each test is, how many sessions each test is, has links to how to get to the FCAT fact sheet, about how to get to the Pearson website and look at the portal. This is going to be, there will be a link on the front page of the website where we'll be able to put some things in. And what I'd like to be able to do, and I'll work with Michelle Irwin on that, is see if we can put some of these other things in there so that you don't have to go hunting for them. Okay? Okay? Thank you all very much and appreciate it. You're welcome.
To add to that, I can put a link so that when you go to the family engagement page, we can do testing there and go right over. We can also work together and maybe come up with some things in a more parent-friendly language that don't go into quite as much detail, but give it to you as straight as possible, and include those on there. And then also, these are just, a lot of times, as you know, she's presenting, she's giving you information, there's going to be tons of questions. It's best to have these conversations and these meetings at your schools with the parents there, because then there's smaller groups and everything can really be addressed. So that's one of the places where you guys come into play by advocating for those to happen at your school. And then the administration at each school knows I'm available, as well as different people at the district, to come down and to help them with that. So they're not alone on it. But you need to be saying, this is what we need. Some parents are thinking it, but they're not saying it. You're the voice for a lot of the parents at the school, so speak up for them.
And if I can just add, in many cases, I spend a lot of time with our assistant principals for curriculum, the APs, and they are probably as well versed in most of this stuff as I am. So a lot of times they're a really, really good resource for you to be able to either pull them into meetings or to be able to address parents. They are probably the school-based experts on a lot of these things.
I was just going to say one thing that might be helpful to add to the website would be a sort of FAQ page, frequently asked questions, because I think a lot of what is being said here, it will be reverberated. You know, are these being linked in with, and of course grades, when will we be receiving grades, that kind of thing. So
We'll do what we can.
Good idea. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Dr. Schaefer. Okay, changing gears a little bit, our next speaker is from Teen Court. So I know for some people who are here from elementary or different grade levels, you feel like not everything necessarily applies. Please know that these things are out there for everybody, and that the parents at your school have kids in different grade levels. So there's lots of opportunities, and you know how fast this all goes. It'll be here before you know it. So there you go, Miss Vanessa Santiago.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here to discuss the Teen Court program. I work at the State Attorney's Office. I'm actually a case manager for the Juvenile Diversion Program, and I'm also the Teen Court Coordinator. So what is Teen Court? Let's move along here. Okay. All right, I need help with my clicker. What's happening?
It's a little slow. There you go.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay, so Teen Court. It's a really unique, innovative program that allows first-time juvenile offenders. So yes, these are real teenagers who have committed a crime in Brevard County, misdemeanor crimes, and they get to come before a group of their own peers. So just like adults would go through court and be judged by a jury of their peers, we facilitate the same thing in Teen Court. This is actually facilitated at the Viera Courthouse in a real courtroom. Everybody in the courtroom is going to be a teenager. I'm always looking for volunteers to participate in the roles of the defense attorney, prosecuting attorney, the clerk, the bailiff, and the jurors, okay? Since I work at the juvenile diversion program, I get to review cases for teens who have committed a misdemeanor crime, such as trespassing on school grounds, battery, criminal mischief, like a vandalism charge, things like that. The PAY program is the program that I work for, Prosecution Alternatives for Youth. So we give teens a second chance opportunity, and we utilize Teen Court as a method of disposition, okay? The defendants must admit guilt and take accountability for their charges, okay? We do this because in Teen Court, we don't make a determination of whether or not that defendant is guilty or not guilty. What we do is a sentencing hearing, okay? And then my job as a case manager is kind of threefold, okay? My goals are to definitely punish this defendant for their crime, for what they've done. Also, I'm here to see what other issues that we need to address, so we could, address those issues and provide services if they need that. So everybody in the program, they go through a mental health and a substance abuse screening to provide counseling or any other services. And then also, I want to keep them away from the judge. Okay, so being in a diversion program, the benefit for the defendant would be they're not going through the regular justice system. They're not going to appear in front of the judge, and that means that they will not be convicted of their charges. Okay, unfortunately, if they were arrested, they'll have an arrest on their record, but again, if they successfully complete a diversion program like teen court, as a defendant, their charges would actually be dropped through the state attorney's office. So qualifications for volunteers, I'm always looking for volunteers. I want students between the age of 13 and 17, good academic standing. I just want to ensure that they are enrolled in school, doing well, no truancy issues. It's very important to demonstrate maturity and professionalism because, again, this is not a mock trial. I know a lot of schools are doing mock trials. This is the only hands-on opportunity where they're going to hear a real defendant who's been in trouble, and they do get an opportunity to read a real police report and all of the evidence for that case as well, okay? Also, abide by the teen court dress code policy. Since we are doing this in a regular courtroom, I expect them to dress professionally, okay? And then, most importantly, is the oath of confidentiality, okay? Again, since these are defendants who can be students in your own child's school. They could be in their own classroom. It's very, very, very important to abide by the oath of confidentiality. They cannot discuss this defendant's name and what their charge is, anything, okay? So not only do the volunteers have to sign paperwork that they understand the oath of confidentiality, but their parents have to sign that as well on the application. Every time they come into teen court, for every teen court hearing, they actually have to swear in and abide and recite this oath as well, because that's how important it is. History of teen court, according to the National Association of Youth Courts, the first teen court program was established in Naperville, Illinois in 1972. In 1991, Sarasota County was the first to establish it in Florida. And Brevard County, we established teen court in 1996. We were one of the earliest programs to establish teen court. Now we actually have 51 counties that facilitate this teen court program. Okay, so it's been very successful. In 1999, we were actually featured on America's Most Wanted because we were considered a model example for other programs throughout the state and throughout the nation. Now there's over 1,200 teen court programs nationwide, and actually 2 weeks ago I received an email that it's actually been implemented in other countries like Australia and England. So sanctions. When the defendant will come in for their teen court hearing, okay, and the defense attorney and prosecuting attorney, they'll go and present the case. They'll do an opening statement. They'll ask questions to the defendant on the stand. They'll do a closing argument and make a determination and their recommendation of what the sanctions would be. But it is ultimately up to the jury panel to come up with the sanctions. So these are examples. They would come up with the number of community service hours. So for example, last week we had teen court. I had somebody that was assigned 50 hours of community service. I had somebody that was assigned 15 hours. Of course, everything is going to be based on the evidence, the defendant, the charge, their attitude, their demeanor, everything. Random drug testing. Actually, every single defendant in a juvenile diversion program, we conduct random drug testing. They'll have more testing if their charge is related to drugs or alcohol, though. Essays, restitution, letters of apology, fire safety classes, teen court jury duties. Outward Bound, if no one's heard of Outward Bound, it's a really, really interesting program. It's a 20-day wilderness program, actually, that they leave from MIMS. And it's not just for teens that have been arrested, okay? Parents can recommend their child to do this in Brevard County. Since it's facilitated here in Brevard County, it's a free program. Other counties have to pay $7,000 to do this program, okay? So Outward Bound, they actually take a small group of boys or girls. They take them to the Ocala National Forest, and every day for 20 days, they will camp and canoe themselves all the way back to Brevard County. Okay, so I've worked for this program for 5 years. I've had a lot of defendants do Outward Bound, and I've always gotten, good results from it. It's a good opportunity to just be away from their environment and to focus on themselves and address things like peer pressure, school issues, things like that. Other sanctions could be counseling, educational videos, curfew, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. For the benefits for the volunteers, there's so many benefits. Okay, again, this is not a mock trial. Where else can your child participate in a hands-on experience like this? So if they're interested in anything related to criminal justice, to be an attorney, to be a police officer, anybody who's interested in majoring in political science, anything like that, or if they're just interested in doing community service and don't want to go pick up trash or anything like that, this is a really good experience that they will learn from. I guarantee it. Again, provides a hands-on experience. They'll get community service hours, okay, especially for those students who are interested in getting the Bright Future scholarships, or a majority of scholarships now, you will have to have community service hours, okay? I believe Bright Future scholarship, it's 100 hours now to get the qualify for 100%. So imagine doing an experience like this, teen court, where they would actually benefit from and learn from, again, instead of doing something like picking up trash. The teens get to network with state and local government officials. Again, everybody in the courtroom is going to be a teenager, except I will be there. I facilitate teen court. And then the judge is actually a real attorney from the state attorney's office. In the past, I've actually had retired judges participate, and we've even had a mayor come and participate. Okay, so the teens will get an opportunity to speak to them. I'll also bring in guest speakers. Last week I actually had Judge Ryman that took the time out to speak to all of the volunteers at Teen Court. They really get to develop strong interpersonal skills, especially for those teens who really want to be an attorney or just be trained to be an attorney. They will be trained by real attorneys from the state attorney's office. They'll go through training. They'll teach them all the courtroom etiquette, how to do a proper opening statement, closing argument, everything. So for any teen that is interested in being an attorney, this would be extremely beneficial, okay? We have actually hired someone who works at the state attorney's office who used to be a teen court volunteer in Brevard County. She is a huge advocate of the program, okay? And one of the things she loves to talk to the teens about is how much she learned from teen court, because when she went to law school, she already knew basic everything, basic courtroom etiquette, how to do all of that. So we're really proud that we got to hire somebody who was, directly from our teen court program. Really helps with confidence in public speaking. Definitely looks good on a college application, a resume. We will do letters of recommendation if they need it for any scholarship or anything. And it's definitely making a meaningful difference in their community, okay? Because again, this is a successful program. When it comes to the defendants who are going on the stand and explaining what they've done wrong, our recidivism level has always been since 1996, it's always been under 15%. Okay, so if you're familiar with juvenile justice system and look up DJJ statistics, that's really good. Okay, so a majority of the defendants do not come back and reviolate. Actually, I have a number of volunteers who committed a crime, went through teen court, they did very successful, and then they actually participate in teen court now. So we facilitate teen court in the Vieira Courthouse, okay? We will do this after regular court has completed, so we do this on Tuesday evenings. 5:30 p.m. we ask that the volunteers come in and sign in, and we actually start right at 6 o'clock, okay? They're there no more than 2.5 hours. They usually have 2 cases back to back if they're going to be there for a jury panel, and we're usually there, completed before 8:30. And this is just my contact information. I've also brought brochures on teen court and my business card, so please do not hesitate to contact me for any reason. And I'm also available to do any teen court presentations at any schools. Do we have any time for questions? Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do they have to pre-register for? Oh.
Oops. Oh, sorry. They have an official microphone.
Do they have to pre-register for the 5:30 when they sign in, or just come and sign in?
Well, I would rather you contact me so I could give you an official application and have all of that. Then, yes, you can come in. I'd like the opportunity to speak with that child to really, so they understand everything, and also recommend that they just watch their first time. Just so they could see how everything goes in teen court and see if this is something that they really want to participate in. Yes, ma'am.
My question was about Outward Bound. I had never heard about that. You said it's a free program.
Yes.
Can you tell me the dates of that?
The dates vary. I actually have a
different ones?
defendant who's leaving today. So the dates vary. Again, if you contact me, I could give you the information for the woman who's the facilitator of that, and I actually have all the actual application for Outward Bound as well. So, no problem.
Hi, just a quick question. If a teen were arrested, how would they get involved with this?
Well, since I work at the state attorney's office, I actually get to review case files and select what would be appropriate for teen court. So I'm not going to select violent crimes. I'm not going to select felony crimes. I'm really selecting teens that, for example, last week I had a teen with a 4.0 GPA, participates in ROTC in several sports, honors classes, everything you could think of, got caught up with a crowd and he stole a bracelet that was $199 at Spencer's. So again, it's just a lot of the teens that go as far as defendants, they're good kids that deserve a second chance. Okay, so but for anything that's more serious than that, it's we're going to utilize something else instead of teen court. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. And again, we have her business cards and we have the brochures that we're going to move down towards the sign-in sheets for you to grab on your way out. Okay? And next, talking about the transition for kindergarten, is Dr. Beth Mills.
Thank you. Perfect. Well, I'm glad to be back in front of you. I miss being here every month and seeing all of you. Those of you who have been here for years, I used to do this with Jenny Gleason years ago, and so I'm thrilled to be here in front of you. We're going to talk today about kindergarten transition, and we've been working very hard to really streamline the process between our pre-kindergartens, private and public alike, and kindergarten, and help to make the transition as seamless as possible, and to make connections between where the children are coming from, whether it be home or preschool or VPK classroom, inside the public schools or outside the public schools, and into our elementary schools. So I'm going to share with you where we're going and what we've been doing and ask for some support. And as we do this, you have on your table one sheet that has a plus and a delta side on it to give us some feedback at the end. So I want you to be thinking as I present about any feedback to help us improve the process. Some of the changes we may be able to make this year. Some we may just keep on a back burner and say that's a great idea, but it's going to take some legwork and we want that for next year. So here we go. kindergarten pre-registration and orientation. You have some posters on the tables, and if you didn't get one or you would like one, you have some place to put it up, then I have some extras I can give you at the end of the meeting as well. But every school, elementary school, has received these. Yesterday the APs brought them home from their meeting with us, and we are getting them out to area daycares through the Early Learning Coalition, and we're getting them out to our libraries, our libraries, and to all of you, and our early childhood contacts. So, having said that, we want to think first about what it is that you remember most about transitioning to kindergarten, and about what you wish someone might have done for you at that point. So just keep in mind that it was a long time ago for many of us. And we might think about what our children felt for some of us, and what we wish that somebody had done for them. Anybody have any thoughts that you just want to call out? Go ahead. She's running.
What I do wish is so much of the schools now are electronic, everything. The person at the school that we attended starting last year, the electronic, it wasn't communicated to us as clear as I wish it would have been. So there's a lot of things that were going on that we missed.
Absolutely.
And that we found out like after the fact and stuff, and like, so that's what I wish is more, I don't know, how to better communicate to the new parents coming in, especially the ones that are brand new, about just how much everything is electronic.
Yes.
And not everything's going to go home in a paper form, or if it did go home in a paper form and you lost it, you can find it here.
Absolutely.
So
and that's an ongoing effort, and something that as parent leaders we want you to communicate at your schools, how important it is to reach out and communicate in different ways with you, at least to get the information out there initially that this is the regular way we will communicate with you, and so on and so forth. So that is one of our biggest battles, which is why we're working on a communication plan, why we're talking to AP assistant principals, we're talking to early childhood contacts, we're talking to you, we're talking to community daycare providers, because we want the input from all of you about how can we get the word out, and how can we make sure people know the things that they need to know to make the transition smoother. So as you come up with these ideas, we want you to share them with us, because we really want to use them and get them out there. Right. Right. That is definitely what we're aiming to do.
Can you repeat that, Beth? Some people in the back didn't hear.
She was basically saying that as a new parent going into kindergarten years ago, she didn't know anything about where her child was supposed to go, how she was supposed to get him registered or do anything, and has that improved? And I was saying that is definitely our goal, is to make sure that that's not the case. But it takes a lot of outreach, because we are having to reach out to people in all different places. And as we move through this PowerPoint, we're going to look at all the different places within our county that people are coming from into kindergarten. And we need your help determining how to get the word out to them best, because all of you can be reached through school districts in the different ways that you have now learned that we communicate with you. People that have never been in the school district cannot. That's why we're partnering with Early Learning Coalition, the libraries, and we're reaching out to area providers outside of the district, because that's where parents are coming from and they don't know. Now, having said that, one thing that will be very helpful for you to understand on that poster is that there is a QR code okay, my tech helper there. There's a QR code so that you can scan that little barcode, and it will bring you right to the page on the BPS website where you can type in your address and find out what school you go to. So that is what we're trying to get out there to the daycare providers so that they can help their parents find out where their child will go to school, libraries, and everybody who would need to know, because we know in the school how to help you do that, but if you're not at the school yet, then you need other places to find this out. So let's move on to some more information. I want to share this for some humor and a little information with you.
Who's going to Big Kid School this morning?
Ready to go to school, dude?
Are you going to be shy?
No.
Are you
People love.
What's today?
July.
Can you tell me what day it is today?
Wednesday.
What are you starting today?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Kindergarten.
What's today?
My school.
What's today?
Kindergarten.
Are you a little excited?
Yeah, and sort of nervous.
Excited?
Really excited.
Are you looking forward to it?
Kind of excited because I'm nervous a lot.
Excited about your first day of school?
Excited and just totally excited.
What did you learn at school today, Ted?
Nothing.
You learned nothing? Not one thing?
What did you do?
I didn't learn my ABCs there.
You didn't?
You learned in school.
We learned about,
What'd you do? That fun, huh?
So Mara, did you make any new friends today?
Yeah?
Yeah, what were their names?
I don't know.
And you made a new friend today?
Yes, I did.
And what's her name?
I forgot.
Do you have any friends in your class?
A lot of friends. Max, Patrick,
From dance?
SpongeBob.
Oh, SpongeBob's in your class? Are you excited to go back tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, say bye-bye.
You can never get enough smiles.
As you can
Wherever
see,
that
there
came from,
were
check out
definitely
these other
a lot of Okay. There are a lot of different perspectives from students that we heard there, and most of them were excited, but also a little bit nervous or quite nervous about going to kindergarten. So we need to help, because we know as parents we're just as excited or sometimes nervous as those children are. So our mission is to create a meaningful and smooth transition for children and parents as they take this journey into kindergarten. The partnerships that we're developing to try to support this mission is the school district, our VPK students, because 80% of our children statewide go to VPK, and 80% of the children in Brevard County approximately go to VPK. So we can reach a lot of them if we can reach out to VPKs, whether they're in the district or outside of the district schools. ESC, our exceptional education students who are getting some support to give them a boost before they start kindergarten. Head Start, we have Head Start within the school district now, so it's easy for us to make that connection and collaboration. The Early Learning Coalition, which oversees all of the providers that offer daycare, VPK, any of the after-school services. We can reach out and partner with them. Families, you, which is why we're here. And, of course, the community, different community organizations like the libraries that can help us as well. The impact, a huge impact. We're talking about 5,000 children, 5,000 families impacted every year. 365 teachers in 64 different schools. So it's a big initiative, and it's a lot of people involved. This is our initiative timeline. I know it's kind of hard to see, but basically I just want to share with you that we have met with early childhood contacts. That has occurred. That was our first step and gotten their input. We met yesterday with elementary assistant principals to have this conversation with them. We're meeting with you today. That's our yellow bubble there. We have a community pre-K provider meeting that we're going to be publicizing through the school district and with the Early Learning Coalition for private and public providers to come together and have this conversation and make some plans for transition. And that will be in the boardroom here on March 2nd. And then we are going to also present to Title I contacts, because most of our pre-K students that go to VPK here in the school district are our most at-risk students, who are Head Start students or students from Title I schools that really need the extra support, and we need to reach out and make sure that we're providing early intervention for them and their families. And then kindergarten orientations, which are going to come out to you and will be from March through May. And you'll have a list of what day and time they are at each of those schools throughout the county. I have that list created. I've gathered that information from principals. However, having spoken to assistant principals yesterday, and Dr. Wright and I made some suggestions to them, we're giving them a little bit of time to see if they want to make any changes in their days and dates, because some of the things that we recommend are having a day and an evening opportunities to make it easy for parents who are working during the day, and being able to go through the classrooms and see the classroom and doing a tour and so on and so forth. So some of their initial thoughts might have been changed, so I'm giving them a few days to change their date if they want to rethink that, and then I will publicize the dates. So where are the kids coming from? Well, within the school district, we have a wide variety of programs that they're coming from. They're coming from Step Forward VPK programs. Those are VPK programs in our Title I schools. They're coming from blended VPK programs where we have 8 ESE students, exceptional education students, and 10 VPK students working together collaboratively with a teacher and 2 assistants. ELP programs where students are in ESE classrooms with ESE teachers and assistants, and they're rolling up either to regular kindergarten or an exceptional education kindergarten classroom. Head Start VPK, which serves our most economically disadvantaged families in the community, and our high school CTE programs, where our high school students are learning about becoming early childhood educators, and they're going through the class and they're working hands-on with VPK students at 5 of our high schools. Then outside of BPS, we also have community VPK providers. I told you 80% of students from 4-year-olds are going to VPK. Well, we only have about a quarter of those here in the school district, so the other 3/4 are going to private VPK providers, child care providers that are not associated with VPK, and then of course homes. So we need to get the word out, and we need your help with this. We need to make sure that parents know when registration is, how they go about it, what the process is, when the orientations are, so that we can get that information and start making connections with parents and children and schools early on this spring, rather than waiting until it's time for kindergarten and having to quickly adjust to everything. So the plan is to place posters at every school, advertise pre-registration, provide presentations to various groups, which is what we're doing here, share the list of school kindergarten orientation dates, which is what I said I would be getting out very soon, provide K transition packets to support families. Those are the packets that you have in your handouts. And I want you also to look at those, and if you have recommendations or suggestions for other information that is not in there, or suggestions or comments about what is in there, please share that with us, because we already got some information at our early childhood contact meeting and made adjustments. We got additional information at our AP meeting yesterday, and we are going to make some adjustments, and any input you give us, we will make adjustments if we can. If not, we'll keep it in the hat for next year. Finally, we're going to be distributing backpacks for our BPS VPK students, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that initiative in just a minute. So, schools are going to be provided with these. They will receive these materials, and parents will get these at their orientations. Some of the best practices that we want you to encourage for your schools. Ask them if they can offer an evening option. An evening option for our working parents is extremely important. Have VPK and K teachers present. Those are the teachers, whether they're Brevard Public School VPK teachers or outside the public school, those are the teachers that know those students. Have them come together to plan the meetings and to help to transition the students. Kindergarten teachers and VPK teachers working together to plan this. And definitely within our school district, it's easier for us to collaborate and organize that. It's a little more challenging when we're outside the school. I am connecting our elementary schools with the VPK sites in their areas so that will help to assist them in that. But you know what daycares and what places that offer VPKs in the churches and surrounding areas are in your area, so getting the word out to them is very, very important. Consider a classroom tour. A tour is very helpful to get our children ready. And then sharing that information to help families transition. These are the things that are in your packet that we just talked about. And we're going to be providing every VPK student in Brevard Public Schools. Now remember, I told you that the reason we are doing this for those in our school district is because these tend to be our most at-risk students. We are serving them, and the reason we have full-day VPK programs is because we're using multiple funding sources. The state funds about 3 hours of VPK every year. And so if you go to a private provider, you have 3 hours of care. That is great. That's awesome. That's more than we've had in the past. But in the case of our most at-risk students, our economically disadvantaged families, where we know there's already struggles and challenges and they already have some strikes against them, we want to do more. So in order to have full-day VPK programs and in order to have certified teachers, we have to combine other funding sources. So Title I, Head Start, these funding sources help to make that happen. That's also how this is happening. These backpacks that are going home with families, and the families are going to have a meeting, and we're going to share with them, okay, what do you do with this cookie tray and these magnetic letters with your child? Make learning fun. Use it over the summer. What are you going to do with the white wipe-off board? What are you going to do with the books and the materials that are in here? So we share with families what they're going to do with these materials, use them in the classroom with the students so they get excited about it, and then send them home over the summer. And here is why. There we go. Didn't take this long earlier.
Let's look at two children, one from a middle-income family, the other from one of the millions of low-income American families. As the two kids head off to kindergarten, look what happens. The middle-income child starts out with a 6-month lead. The low-income child is already falling behind because of a lack of access to early reading and preschool education. During their year in kindergarten, in the same school and classroom, the two children will learn at about the same rate, so we'll move them both forward 9 months. But look what happens in that first summer between kindergarten and first grade. Our middle-income child moves ahead about a month in reading because learning of one kind or another continues over the summer. The low-income child falls back about 2 months. So when school begins again, when they go back for first grade, the gap between them has already widened. During first grade, again, they move ahead at about the same rate, another 9 months. That next summer, the activities and lifestyle of the middle-income family keep that child moving forward, but the low-income child has fewer opportunities to reinforce good habits like reading, and that child falls farther behind. Then we come to second grade, and again, our two children learn at the same rate. But the summer after second grade sets our low-income child back again, and our middle-income child moves forward again, and the gap widens again. By just the third grade, the two children are already far apart. By the end of fifth grade, the gap between the children is 2.5 to 3 years. It will keep growing through middle school. So you see, without addressing what's happening during the summer, it is impossible to ever catch up. It's impossible to close the gap. No matter how much high-quality learning goes on from September to June, every year the gap widens.
And I am going to hand it over to Dr. Binkley now, but I appreciate your time, and my information is right here. And please remember any comments. We would really appreciate them, and we are going to use them. Thanks.
I just wanted to share a couple brief things with you today. How many of you heard us talk about the legislative outreach plan that we put out? How many of you have been able to promote that a little bit? A little bit, okay. How many of you would like to promote it a little bit more with some more information? Couple things that we want to share. I don't know, have you been following, you've probably been following on the news some of the things that are going on. It looks like through a lot of these types of outreach activities, we're making some headway with Tallahassee. Thank you so much. And so I want to take you where we are again, right here, legislative outreach. And if you haven't got to view the Adventures of Drop-In Suds, I would highly recommend that you watch it with your kids. It's a cute way to teach them how to wash their hands and stay healthy. Couple things that we've added here that I wanted to bring to your attention. We have the forum. I'm not going to take you through. You're not going to watch the whole thing because it's very long. But we did do a 5 forums where we went over this with our community. And we videotaped one of them fully all the way through. So this is a great tool if you're having like a PTA meeting or a group of parents together and they have questions about our position, to actually just watch it as a group. It's about 27 minutes long. It is a little lengthy, but it really explains some of the things that we are trying to impact with Tallahassee.
Basically, what we're working on is how do we work
like I said, it's 27 minutes, and we all need to get out of here soon. So there it is. I wanted to share that with you. We also have added on to here a contact list for legislators. This should bring it up for you. Here's all of the different legislators and where they serve. Let's see if we can make it any bigger. Well, it's here with their email addresses. So we've tried to make this as simple as possible for people to share. So we often say, contact your legislators, right? And then people go, who do I contact? And so the ones that are important are our local delegation, as well as those that are on the education committees in both the Senate and the House. Those are the ones that are very important. Again, the more momentum we have on this, the more likely we're going to see changes. Tallahassee is saying they're going to make some changes. We just need to keep the pressure on as far as that goes, okay? So I wanted to share that with you first. And then I want to do something else. How many of you are followers of or like us on Facebook? Okay, good. How many of you promote some of the things that we put out on Facebook? Awesome. I want to share with you some things that we're doing really to engage with our community. Oh no, it's blocked here on this one. Of all my ones. Okay, then I can only tell you about it. I don't know why we're blocked on here, but I'll have to look into that with Gino. On our Facebook page, we have entered a new realm, social media in particular. We're trying to engage more with our community because we want them to know all the great things that are going on at Brevard Public Schools. Anybody here from Manatee today? Manatee, yay! Have you seen the kindergarten video yet? It's freaking adorable. So you got to go out and look at it. It was them celebrating their 100 days, their 100th day. Unbelievably cute. It looks like some stock photo. It's like 20 seconds long. Go out there, look at it, share it. It's on our Facebook page. We're putting things out like contests. We're putting things out, lots of videos. Matter of fact, I had somebody else say, "Did you see the video that Jupiter did?" And I said, "Share it with us." So we need you to share those things, and really, so we can connect with the community and share these great things that are going on in the community. Yes. Yeah, and we did push it out on Twitter. My new guy who produced the video hasn't put it for me to access, so right now I just put it to link to our Facebook, but I'm going to go put the video on Twitter once he gives me access to it. So anyways, I just want to share that with you. It's really important. if you are if you are part of a PTO group, and I know a lot of you have your own Facebook pages, to go in there and like us and then share those out with your communities. This is what's really important, to really not just share the information, because there's a lot of information that we have to get out to our community, but also some of the very cool things that are going on in our schools, as well as we're starting to put out things like homework tips and snacks, healthy snack ideas, exercise. My favorite one, nobody has jumped on it yet, but we're working on it, is exercising in the car loop while you're waiting, the different types of exercises you can do, moms, and I'm going to trademark that one because I think it's going to go viral once we have it. So and if you have ideas, share them with us. Put them on our Facebook page, share them out, and we will get them out to other people. So any questions for me at this point? Because I see I'm getting the stand. Yes, ma'am. Oops,
Microphone. Okay, this is a good question for you. What is being done to make sure that our kids are going to be able to type on these computer-based tests that they're going to be taking? That's a big concern. I mean, I know my son.
Back to Ms. Rodriguez in the curriculum department about where typing is a part of the curriculum.
Yeah, like my son's in
keyboarding, right?
In middle school, there are CTE courses that include the keyboarding. The CTE teachers have been given permission to allow students to practice those FSA assessments using the tools and stuff through the CTE classes. And every 7th grader rotates through that. 8th graders can choose that as an alternate elective.
One more. Last question. Sure. Who makes up the EOCs?
Go ahead. I could have answered that one, but I will let Ms. Rodriguez do that.
EOCs are state tests. EOCs, end of course, are state tests. Algebra 1, biology, U.S. history, civics, this year Algebra 2. State develops those assessments.
However, the ones that are not state developed will be developed in the school system. It's been left to the local school district to develop.
What are those classes?
Gym, music, anything that's not already a state test. At this point, EOCs are required for every test in every subject area.
Does the AP exam count as the EOC if they're taking APUSH or language arts, something like that, or do they have to take the APUSH exam and the U.S. history end of course?
That is our understanding, correct? AP is not counting as an EOC. It is? We'd have to check on that one. We'd have to get Ms. Van Meter down here, I think.
For AP U.S. history and the U.S. history EOC, in order to get the diploma distinction, they must take both.
Trust us, it's craziness that none of us, we're like going, what? All right, then I'm going to turn it back over to Diana. Thank you. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Push out that agenda. Oh, do you want this or the other one? There you go.
Okay, just a reminder before you go up and bombard everybody for a t-shirt, make sure you have this filled out because this is your ticket for the t-shirt. Also, I just want to remind you as you're leaving, I see lots of people taking notes and so many people paying close attention and asking great questions and leaning over to the person next to them and making great comments. Just remember, you guys are the voice for all those other people at the school that aren't saying anything from the parents' perspective, and you're the ones who can get things going with the parents. So if there are a ton of questions out there, if there's things you know at your school that the parents need, you are the one who can advocate for it. And if you're struggling and if your principal isn't listening, the whole point is to take this information back to the school and share it out, not for it to die in a notebook in the front office that no one ever goes and sees. We want this information out there and to get back to the rest of the parents who aren't here right now. And it doesn't matter whether you're the PTO president or you're a parent that's not holding an office but you care. Your voice needs to be heard and help represent those ones that aren't here. If you have questions, if you have things that you don't understand, if you're not getting answers, I can't promise I have the answer, but make sure you're letting me know, this is the stuff I don't understand. If we talked about FSAs and that wasn't your question today, let me know. Share with me exactly what you're confused about so that I can make sure that we get you the information you need, okay? Thank you guys. I really appreciate you coming, and we'll see you next month.